having so much fun with award-winning cookbook author James Peterson, who's joining me today to share some of the techniques from his new book called Essentials of Cooking. We're starting with what, Jim?
These are pearl onions.
Yes.
And if you have 2 or 3, don't bother doing this. But if you've got a pile of pearl onions, you peel them with boiling water. We pour this boiling water over them. We let them sit a minute.
Okay.
Just sort of stir them around. You can throw them into a pot of boiling water. It doesn't really matter.
Sure.
Just loosen the skin. Then I take it out, and then you just peel them like you would imagine. And I'll show you. Ooh, they smell good, don't they?
Lovely.
So I cut through the little root end. I just cut that off, which loosens the peel. You're probably better. You did this every Thanksgiving.
I sure did.
And then I cut the other end off, and you see the membrane. And I just peel it back, and you kind of scrape it.
You don't like leaving the tip on? You take the tip off.
Well, if it's fresh, I leave it on. But these look a little, not quite so fresh. So this time of year. So I pull them off, pull this off. So there you go. That's peeled.
Yep, perfect.
So we could go through this. We could spend
Okay, so you can leave the tip on, but I agree. See, that's not so pretty.
It's not so pretty, so I cut it off.
Yeah. Well, now we're going to do something really delicious with steaks, and I'm anxious to see your technique for this,
Okay,
too.
what we did, we cheated a little bit, and we sautéed the steaks ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
So we got the pan. Let me turn the stove on here.
But what did you saute the steaks in?
Well, I used a little oil.
Okay.
A little olive oil, a little vegetable oil. You can use clarified butter. Whole butter can burn, so I tend not to use that.
Okay.
And what happens is the steaks release juices, and they caramelize on the bottom of the pan.
Okay.
And you see there's a little bit of fat in there, and that's cooked fat. Now, there's a lot of it, you just pour it out, but you're reaching for the exact thing I need, which is a paper towel. And
I had a feeling about that.
Just wipe that out.
So you want the caramelization of the meat juices, but you don't want the fat.
Yes. And I get the pan nice and hot, and then I deglaze it. That's the word when you dissolve these juices, because this is sort of the glaze, and you're whatever you're doing to it. I'm adding a little red wine. This is the Chianti.
Lovely.
Which is nice. You want something with a lot of body, not too much acidity. I like California wines for this. And I take my whisk, and I just dissolve those juices, and I move the pan, get those juices right up there in the wine.
And they always come loose. That's the nice thing about it.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I know. They always come loose, and you get a lot of flavor out of it. Now, if I were at home, I would just cook this down. I just use it like that, just a little glaze over the meat. But if I'm being fancier, I add a little concentrated veal stock.
Now, do you make your own or do you buy it?
To be honest with you, I usually buy it.
Yeah.
It's a long process, but this is gorgeous. So when the wine is reduced a little bit, I add some of this glaze.
And we'll put the names of these glazes on our website so that you can find them easily.
And I never really measure. I just sort of eye it. We've got 2 juicy steaks
already
here.
It's becoming
so
glistening.
See,
yeah, it glistened it up.
It's already a sauce.
Yep.
Now we can reduce it a tad more because we're going to add a little butter, which is the French trick for finishing a modern brown sauce. Then you want the butter to be cold from the cold side, and you just swirl it in, whisk it in, and you keep the pan moving because otherwise the butter can separate and break.
And what kind of steaks did you use?
These are New York strip steaks. Now, see this texture of the sauce?
Yes.
Now, if it were to get too thick, you could dilute it with a little of this.
Okay, now that's what, veal stock?
This is veal stock that hasn't been reduced.
Okay.
This has been reduced, cooked way down. But this is a nice, don't you think that's a nice texture?
I think it's perfect.
Now, one little trick that a lot of people don't know is that one of the ways to wake up the flavor of a brown sauce is to add a drop of vinegar. This is a very good sherry vinegar.
Yes.
Sherry is one of my favorites. And a little good brandy. And this is, I use cognac or Armagnac. Just a spot.
Okay, so notice, not too much.
No, you don't want it to have a raw, and then you make sure you let it evaporate the fumes of the alcohol. Nice, we can season it with a little salt and pepper, little kosher salt, sea salt if you're being fancy, freshly ground pepper. You can use cracked pepper, you can use green peppercorns, you turn it into a green peppercorn sauce. This technique works for all kinds of goodies. And I'll just pour it right out of the pan.
A very beautiful sauce on a very beautifully cooked steak. How great. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, one last meat thing, and this is a tenderloin, which the French call a filet of beef. It comes in different forms, different degrees of trimming, and this one has been very well trimmed, and it's been tied, but it's been tied by the butcher, and I want to show a different way of doing it. So I'm going to start by taking off what the butcher already did.
Well, this is the most spectacular filet from our friends, the Lobels.
What happens with a tenderloin is, you see, there's this little end, this little tip.
Yes.
And these are the filet mignon, traditionally, this section here. And this is the butt end.
Right.
And this center part is where you get the chateaubriand and the tournedos. Well, the problem, if you're roasting a whole filet, this part overcooks. And this part is raw.
Right.
So what I do, and I've never seen anybody do it this way, I just sort of figured this out, because I used to have a restaurant. We were always trying to figure out these problems.
Which was your restaurant?
It was called Le Petit Robert. It was in New York. It was years ago. We went out of business. I spent too much money on truffles. So I take this section of the butt end and I strap it onto this end. So it's even. And I just run I don't do it as nicely as LaBelle. They're
oh, aren't they masterful?
They're masterful.
Yeah.
Do you want to tie up this end?
I will.
It's just this isn't really detached, but you see the muscles loose, and we don't want it to fall apart while it's roasting. This you really shouldn't cook beyond rare. And what I usually do is season it, brown it in a pan first, because it doesn't have time to brown in the oven, and then I stick it in a very hot oven, and it's done.
Great.
Season it well, salt and pepper.
And it's so pretty for presentation because it's nice and long.
Yes, it's really long.
Well, great. Thank you very much. This is
really
excellent. Now we have one more thing.
Now, one more little thing. Just a little trick with garlic.
Yeah.
I slice the garlic, so I get the minced garlic, and then to really get it to release its flavor, I crush it. I really lean on it. I haven't destroyed any knives yet.
No.
And you see, you get this paste.
Oh, wonderful! Yes.
And then I mix it with chopped parsley sometimes. Make a persillade, which is a mixture you can just put on sautéed vegetables.
Right.
And
Just parsley, no salt or pepper in it. Then the persillade.
I usually don't, because I put the seasoning on with whatever I'm using it for anyway, so I don't bother.
Well, excellent.
So.
Well, thank you. If you haven't found this wonderful book called The Essentials of Cooking, please look for it. James Peterson, our author. Thanks very much for coming.
Martha, thank you.